Book of Ea, a spiritual odyssey beyond the visible. Chapter 1. The Silent Ascent. The sun was barely rising over the mountains of Ardesh, tearing through the morning mist with a golden glow. The village of Dunyer, still asleep, nestled peacefully in the valley, unaware of the man who was awakening for a new day of challenges. A man forged by a life of discipline, rigor, and training. It was there, in this quiet retreat, that I was preparing to face a cliff, with no other safety than my iron will and the perfect mastery of my body. From a young age, the intense practice of martial arts, yoga, tai chi chuan, and pranayama had not only sculpted a vigorous body, but also sharpened a mind capable of drawing from unsuspected depths. Years spent learning, teaching, and pushing the limits of the possible in disciplines where even the smallest mistake comes at a high cost had made me a man in constant pursuit of balance. Balance between strength and gentleness, between effort and rest, between action and contemplation. That morning, I had awakened with a particular clarity of mind, the kind of lucidity that precedes great moments, those instances where body and mind unite in perfect harmony. I had not planned this solitary ascent. It had presented itself to me as an obvious final ritual before immersing myself in these vacations dedicated to training my students. A steep, austere cliff stood before me, challenging the sky with its jagged walls. Without a word, without a superfluous thought, I began the ascent. My hands instinctively found the holds, my feet anchored firmly into the rock. Each movement was calculated, precise, fluid. The climb was both a physical trial and an inner journey, a meditation in action. As I ascended, I felt adrenaline mix with the tranquility that only absolute control of the breath can offer. My years of freediving, plunging deep into dark waters, returned to my memory, and with them, the certainty that breathing is the key to everything. Finally, I reached the summit. The forest stretched below, a sea of green vibrating with life, as I stood there, alone, above the world. Breathing heavily, muscles burning, I remained motionless for a moment, savoring this intimate victory. But it was not yet over. In this grand solitude, I began practicing slow Tai Chi movements, letting my body find its natural rhythm, my mind settle. It was at that moment that the thought of my lost master struck me with unexpected force. I had never prayed for him, nor for anyone else. Death wasn't part of my beliefs. It was simply a passage, a stage on a broader path. Yet, at that moment, under the clear sky, I felt the need to address him, as if the ascent itself had led me to this revelation. "Dear Master," I began, "you have always guided me, not only in mastering yoga and martial arts, but also in the art of teaching, of answering my students' philosophical questions. Now that you are no longer here, I am happy for you have joined the angels in a wonderful place. But what will I do for my students? How can I continue to help them, to answer their questions, without your wisdom?" The wind whispered in my ears, caressing my sweaty face. I let the silence answer for me, for deep inside, I already knew the answer. "I will manage on my own," I finally murmured. "I understand that you are no longer here, but there will always be a way to love and help my students." I stayed there a moment longer, meditating, breathing deeply, contemplating the forest before descending by the other side of the mountain, taking an easy path, far from the steep cliffs. This victory, this inner dialogue, I would share with no one, not even my family. These thoughts and emotions belonged to another world, a world I continued to explore alone, with the same determination that had always guided me. Thus my vacation began, marked by this silent ascent, a prelude to a summer of training, teaching, and discoveries. But never, ever would I speak of this climb or of this dialogue with my master. Some victories are meant to remain in the secret of the mountains, where only those who have climbed the highest peaks can understand them. Chapter 2. The Voices of Silence. The summer in Ardèche had unfolded like a dream of strength, discipline, water, and stone. My students and I had immersed ourselves in the intensity of the currents, climbed steep cliffs, explored the depths of freediving, and fought on the burning sands of rivers. Techniques became sharper, bodies stronger, and in every movement I felt the presence of my late master. I had never stopped teaching, even under the relentless sun, and my lessons were always given freely because teaching was never a profession for me, but a vocation, a deep calling of the soul. But soon, summer vacation came to an end. September signalled the return to routine to the martial arts school in Charvieux, 200 kilometres from my home. There, near Lyon, my students awaited me, as did a couple of dear friends, Corinne and Jackie, who welcomed me into their home so I could sleep close to my school. Their hospitality was warm, but this time something new and unsettling added to the familiarity. Corinne's obsession with the Ouija board. That evening, in the cosy living room of their house, Corinne, Jackie, and even my wife, Fabienne, were sitting around a table, eyes fixed on a glass in the centre, surrounded by the letters of the alphabet. Their faces were focused, expectant, as the glass moved faintly, as if pulled by an invisible string. They spent hours trying to capture responses, signs, words, while I observed from the couch, a yoga book in hand, finding them desperately ridiculous. And then, to break the monotony, to mock their enthusiasm a little, I stood up with a smirk. "All right, let me show you how to summon spirits." It was just a joke, a casual demonstration. I closed my eyes and, in a solemn voice, invoked a channel of light, a space of purity meant to repel any shadow and attract only clarity. It was just theatre, nothing more, but the moment I placed my finger on the glass, everything changed. The glass began to move with a speed that stunned me. Letters formed, words, sentences, and there, before my astonished eyes, it seemed as though the yoga master I had invoked during my ascent in Ardèche was responding to me. I had completely forgotten that moment, lost in the recesses of my mind, but now, faced with these words taking shape under my fingers, a wave of fascination swept over me. The following week, back at Corinne and Jackie's, I returned to the table with new determination. This time, I had prepared precise questions, technical ones, trying to understand whether this phenomenon was real or just an illusion. The answers I received were perfect, disturbingly accurate. At the end of the session, I asked the master, almost jokingly, if I should stop to avoid tiring him. The response sent an unexpected chill through me. Now I am a young man. I didn't understand it at the time, but the idea that old age no longer held sway over him, that death had freed him from his worn-out body, suddenly struck me with painful clarity. But there was a discomfort, an underlying tension. Corinne and Jackie were there, witnesses to these exchanges, and I felt restrained, unable to ask the most intimate, deepest questions. I decided then to try alone, with Fabienne, one night at home. Just the two of us, with the table, the glass, and a simple yes and no to guide the responses. This time, the glass moved slowly, hesitantly. I asked, "Master, are you ready to answer my questions?" The glass indicated yes. "May I set up the alphabet so you can speak to me?" A firm no. Puzzled, I tried one last question, seeking to understand. "Master, may I ask questions so you can answer?" The glass hovered over yes, but the idea of setting up the alphabet was rejected again. A failure, I thought. This was ridiculous, absurd. We went to bed, disappointed, confused. But that night, in the silent darkness, something strange happened. Fabienne, asleep beside me, suddenly began to experience soft vibrations, an almost imperceptible trembling. I tried to wake her, without success. Her breathing changed, her body completely relaxed, and suddenly she began to speak in a deep voice, a voice I knew well. My master's. "Stop that. It's not funny at all," I said, irritated. But the voice continued, deep and steady, speaking to me with the same tone, the same inflections as in my memories. A shiver ran down my spine. "All right. Let's say you are my yoga master. You died 2.5 years ago, and now you've come to speak to me through my sleeping wife. Why?" The answer was direct, no frills. "Because you are lost." It wasn't a condemnation, just a simple observation, and within me I felt the truth of those words. "Okay, it's true, I am lost, but I'm not the only one. Why me?" I pressed. The voice resonated again, with disarming sincerity. "Because you are honest." A light laugh accompanied this answer, almost affectionate. "You would be surprised how many people are truly honest. But there is something else." "What?" I asked, my throat tight. "When you were alone, at the top of that mountain in Ardèche, in your victory, you didn't ask for anything for yourself. You only thought of your students, of helping them, of guiding them. By that act of total giving, you opened a channel of light that allows me to come and speak to you. I will teach you everything you need to know to answer your students' questions." And then the truth overwhelmed me. A torrent of emotions swept over me, and I sobbed, filled with intense joy, with infinite respect for what was happening. This was no longer just a game, but a new reality, a sacred bond that had opened between my master and me, beyond death. Thus began a new year, not only as a teacher, but once again as a student, ready to learn, to grow under the guidance of this master who had come from the shadows to lead me.